The February 24th, 2025 Select Board meeting to order. Mark, you want to take a roll?
Sure. Ms. Hartman?
Here.
Myself, I'm here. Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Ms. Ravelli?
Here.
I know that Ms. Ackerman's not
Absent.
here yet.
I move to enter into executive session. I'm sorry, my mouth is full. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21-2, to discuss and conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations regarding the town manager contract renewal. Where meeting in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take a roll call. Ms. Hartman?
Here. Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Ravelli?
Yes.
And Ms. Ackerman is absent.
Great. Okay, it is 6:05. I am calling the February 24th, 2025 meeting of the Select Board to order. Mark, would you take a roll call, please?
Ms. Ackerman?
Here.
Ms. Hartman?
Here.
Ms. Ravelli?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
And myself, I'm here.
Very good. As usual, we're beginning with public comments, limited to no more than 15 minutes, with no speaker more than 3 minutes, and it's limited to items that are not on the agenda.
Good evening. I'm Gwen Acton. I live at 62 Elm Street. Good evening, Select Board and Town Manager. First, I spoke out at the last meeting. I spoke when I wasn't supposed to, and I shouldn't have done that. Now I understand the rules. I won't do that going forward, so just wanted to apologize for that. However, I'm here tonight because I'm both disappointed and honestly shocked by the board's approach to appointing members to both the Tax Relief Evaluation Task Force and apparently to Concord committees in general. Specifically, I'm concerned that the Select Board has not been following APP number 10, a policy that has been in place to ensure fair, transparent, and high-quality committee appointments. At the February 3rd meeting, Mary Hartman repeatedly said that you had agreed upon a process different from APP 10, in which each one of you would send 1 or 2 names to Wendy, and she would put together a balanced group for nominations. This process raises the following serious concerns. Number 1, lack of accountability. No one on the board had a full list of names of volunteers, so there was no accountability for ensuring that all interested applicants were even considered. For example, suppose one of you had 5 excellent candidates. Wendy would never have heard about 3 of them. That doesn't make any sense. Serious concern number 2, limited participation. Instead of bringing in new perspectives, the appointments include individuals already serving on other committees. Furthermore, the final group lacked any representation from the 25 to 30% of Concord's housing units, renters and landlords, who are also some of the most negatively impacted by the tax relief issues under review. Number 3, ignoring APP 10's best practices. Well, I don't know whether you are legally required to follow APP 10. A simple online search actually suggests you are, but I don't know. Even if you are not legally bound, why disregard a long-standing policy designed to ensure fair representation and strong committees? Why? Number 4, public perception of favoritism. Whether intentional or not, this approach contributes to the perception that the Select Board is simply appointing friends and folks they know, rather than conducting an open and fair selection process. Given the sensitivity of this issue, as well as the general quality of government in town, the board should be making every effort to demonstrate transparency and fairness. For the record, I strongly urge the Select Board to reconsider how it appoints committee members, both to ensure fair and high-quality representation and to avoid even the appearance of bias. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acton. Do I have any other comments?
My name is Cece Donnellan. I live at 22 Center Village, and I moved there in January of 2022.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Can I have your name again, please?
Cece Donnellan.
Thank you.
And I'm here to express a concern regarding the development to be built at 1440, 1450 Main Street. I'm not against developing the site. My concern relates to the earth removal along the border that has a significant hill and steep slope that supports our property. Does the developer have permission to remove the slope and hill and mature trees as approved on December 30th, 2020, that is directly behind the property line? If so, will the project negatively impact our condo foundations, land, and mature trees? And lastly, what kind of protections are in place to protect our properties, if for some reason there's a mistake made, et cetera? So that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Donlin. I believe we're going to have a statement, Carrie, in a.
We are putting together a statement regarding the lawsuit. I would mention that the application itself will be back in front of Megan, the ZBA, on March 20th. Is that your recollection?
It's in March.
Yeah, I think March 20th is when it's back in front of ZBA.
And may I ask, what does that mean, back in front of?
So it will be back in front of them for review based on the lawsuit, the outcome of the lawsuit.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Alicia Boyajan, Westford Road. I'm here because I am aware that the Walden Woods project is circulating a letter to garner resident signatures and asking the Select Board to support placing conservation restrictions on the landfill parcel. I wanted to clearly state for public record that placing any additional restrictions on the landfill site will likely slow and possibly obstruct the current cell tower proposal. I want to point out that the Walden Woods project made similar attempts to restrict the usage of the landfill with Article 59 in 2001 and Article 12 in 2013. Both articles failed to pass at town meeting, indicating our community's desire for the landfill parcel to remain under municipal control and use. Article 38, as you know, passed at the most recent 2024 town meeting, showing strong community support for the landfill cell tower. Well, I personally wish that we didn't have to add additional wireless facilities unless we can convince people to stop using their phones. We must work on increasing the cellular network capacity in our community, and the landfill tower that is in progress will help us achieve that. So please, let's just keep moving forward. I love Walden Pond and Walden Woods, and I will continue to enjoy its natural beauty and its history even after a cell tower is sited and operating at the landfill. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Boyajan.
We have one online.
I have one online. Let me stick with the room.
Okay, stay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Hi.
Yep.
I'm Gail Heyer, Nancy Road, Concord.
Ms. Heyer.
Thank you. I also wanted to voice my support for the plan to site a cell tower at the former Concord landfill. I attended the walkthrough back in November, and it was rewarding to see close to a dozen people from various carriers and consultants and engineering firms who were all interested in making the site a home for a new tower. The tower will take up a tiny piece of this 35-acre site, and there will be plenty of room for other municipal uses or conservation uses in the future. Importantly, the cell tower will improve public safety for over 500,000 visitors to Walden Pond every year, and will likely improve coverage and capacity at the Doug White Fields, which are only 3,500 feet from the proposed location of it's from the location of the old tower, which I presume will be the location of the new tower as well. And that's also just 4,000 feet away from the high school. So I look forward to a public and transparent permitting process, and I fully support this plan.
Thank you, Ms. Heyer. Do you want to make?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to respond to a few inaccurate statements made by one of the previous speakers. It was my understanding that our process for appointing people to the task force was not in violation of APP 10. There are several ways to implement APP 10, and you had suggested one way to do that, which we agreed to. And the other thing that I thought was inaccurate, I believe that Wendy did have a complete list of all the applicants. So I just want to correct the record from what I heard.
So Terry, I went back and listened to the recording from last time, and Wendy specifically said she did not know if she had the complete list.
That's right. And then Andrea said, you do have it, and it's this list, and they agreed she did have it.
Okay, that was not, when she made the nomination, she did not know if she had the complete list.
Okay,
whatever.
okay.
She made the nomination, and she said she did not
Okay.
have the
Sorry,
complete list.
that, I'm going to have to, I'm going to,
There were things on that list that you guys did not do. You did not publicize it, and that's on the list of things you're supposed to do in APP 10, so you did. Yeah, that's incorrect.
So what's probably more important is that I believe that at our next meeting, we're going to have a conversation about APP 10, I think.
I think that's more important.
Yeah,
At our
I think
next
so, right.
At our
Right.
next meeting, Cameron McKenna has agreed to bring APP 10 to the board for a discussion about how we might update that.
Great.
Before he starts writing anything down on paper, he has asked that he get some input from each member. We will discuss it next week, give him our feedback, and he will try to collect that, and we will vote on the final.
I think that's a great idea, and I would just ask that we have sufficient time. It's going to take more than 10 minutes to, more than 15 minutes for us to hash this around.
Okay, so I'll give you, I don't know, 17? I'll give you, we'll do it right.
We can also put
do
them
it
in
right.
writing.
We're getting
What?
clo-
We
we're-
can also put it in
Can I
writing.
just point
Yeah,
out that
go
we're
ahead.
eating into the time
Yeah.
that we
Yes.
need.
Yes.
We were
let's
supposed to be 15 minutes, so we're
Yeah.
almost at the end of our,
Yeah.
Right.
you can make it short?
Great. Mark Martinez, 66 Alpha Circle. So as a Terry, as a follow-up, I think rather than focus on APP 10, one of the select board's goals, actually the first goal for 2024 and 25 was effective and transparent government. So I think we're getting in the weeds as far as APP 10 and how to use that. So what I observed was, there's a lot of notion and a lot of sort of conversation, and particularly on the campaign, about people being transparent and collaborative. What I witnessed was not transparent. It wasn't collaborative. You're talking about individuals receiving emails, not sharing it with other members, and I'm happy for you to do so in executive session. But when one member of the board asks to see other names and he doesn't get to see those names, I find it, troubling. And importantly, I think if we think about
That's inaccurate. Sorry.
So when you finish your comment.
let me finish. So, and it's particularly, one of the things that bothered me was that it was first put initially on the consent calendar. And we sort of saw that last fall with Court Booth. And again, it wasn't subject to public comment, public discussion. In that case, there wasn't even a deference or a heads up to the building committee. So we seemed to didn't learn from that lesson. So when I talk about transparency, or when we talk about transparency in process, we think that the town, the residents deserve better. We think that information should be shared fully among board members, that the process should be open, it should be transparent, it should be fair, and you should be leveraging all of your opinions and all of the information experiences you have to bear. So, the simple message is I think you're stronger as a group, but a lot of your actions, the majority is like 3 or 4 members. So I see sort of silos. I see a little bit of conspiring with members that may not agree with your opinion. And I want to thank you for your time. It's not personal, but I think that, I would hope the select board and specific members can learn from the lessons and mistakes and transgressions of the past, and that can work harder to be more collaborative, functional, and effective as a group. And, there's still time before the next election, And I sincerely hope that, we can start making progress on the goal for this board to be more transparent and more collaborative.
Ms. Martinez, I just want to update you on one thing. At our last select board meeting, we agreed that any appointments to newly formed boards or task forces would in fact be part of the agenda and not on the consent agenda.
Which is great. My only comment, Mary, is that I feel like sometimes we're all super busy and we acknowledge how busy you guys are. And it's frustrating as a resident to sort of have to keep track of this and have to make public comment and have to show up and say, would you guys please follow APP 10 or something to that effect? And then for you to sort of take our critique and then afterwards announce, you're right, we're going to do a better job. So I thank you for doing the better job. I just wish that you had paid more attention to it months ago, and we wouldn't be here today, I think, as some frustrated citizens saying, why didn't you follow either particular, more better governance or specifically APP 10?
I hear you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to make the suggestion that we take a comment from Elizabeth Moore, just because she's been waiting at least the 15 minutes.
Yeah. Ms. Moore?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I have a couple of things that are duplicates of others, and I won't repeat that. But I did want to publicly thank you for taking the steps in the February 10th meeting to improve the appointment nomination process. And I really appreciate your decision to revise APP 10 and also regarding removing some candidates from the consent agenda, certain ones. But I had a couple of other ideas that I thought might be worthwhile for the select board to consider. The first is really simple. It's just currently to honor the current APP 10. I know that Chair Mary Hartman clarified to the public that APP 10 is not policy, is policy, not legislation. And so when the select board does not follow it, it does not break the law. However, we do have an excessive pattern of noncompliance. So my comments are more of the generalization or the general APP 10, not necessarily on the RTE. Here are some facts. We currently have 36 residents who serve on 2 committees, 14 residents who serve on 3, and 4 residents who serve on 4 committees. Many of these people also serve as multiple chair appointments, are on high-profile committees that make a bigger mark on the town, and those that dole out money, as I mentioned before. But some of these appointees are even simultaneously on boards of nonprofits and for-profits. One nonprofit I can think of actually received Concord CPA funding. It's just a too big of a congregation of power. And the sheer numbers show almost an intentional pattern. And I think we need to, even though it's not illegal, I think we need to stop this pervasive attitude that the end justifies the mean, and instead show that our select board members are fair, are finding importance in a fair and representative government. The second thing that I think we should really consider is to remedy the current problem. So I'm asking the select board to consider assigning a member to take a look at all individuals on all committees, find out who they are. I can even forward it to you, I have it myself, and then compare it with some of the cards that came in. It's a relatively simple thing to do. And then if someone is on 4 boards and there are complications associated with it, to consider removing them from 1 or 2 of them. I can express a little story, it's about 30 seconds, but one such person who is on 4 committees and commissions, I won't say who they were, found that those committees and commissions overlapped with time. So for the first committee, he helped make quorum. He left that meeting early, very early, arrived at the second commission late, very late, helped make quorum there. And at the same time, there was a third commission that was taking place at the exact same time where this person was referenced and almost needed to be there to justify their request for action, but couldn't be there because they were flip-flopping between these 2 other committees. And so I think that it's creating a congregation of power, it's creating complications even for the person.
Ms. Moore, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, 1 sentence. So in addition to the select board honoring the current APP 10, looking for ways to improve it and taking steps to remedy the current congregation of power, I'd like to speak to the residents that they need to do their part at the ballot box to break up this current power monopoly.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Don't see any other comments.
Great. Okay. We're a little bit behind schedule, but that was worth it. So let me see, let's move on to select board
Move
appointments.
to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of February 3rd, the town warrant, and a thank you to Ann and Ed Jennings for the gift to the Concord 250 fund.
I have a small edit I want to propose on the minutes.
Okay. Go ahead, which one?
Literally, I went through it. I had got some changes that were incorporated, which was great. I think Gwen Acton is misspelled. Literally. So I think it says Gwen Atkin.
Okay.
I think it's ACTON.
It is
In a
ACTUN.
couple spots there.
Oh,
in the opening.
okay.
So I'm sorry, it was
That's
just
it?
literally.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, great,
Good.
good. Okay,
Okay.
well,
Well,
with
with-
that change,
With the corrected spelling of Ms. Atkins.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, now we move on to select board
Okay,
appointments.
select board appointments. Move to reappoint Mary Wren Vanderwillen of 158 Simon Willard Road to the Library Committee for a term ending May 31st, 2028.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, good, it's unanimous. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Let's move on to the discussion of small changes to the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee charge.
Sure, I guess that's me.
It's you.
So some of this was covered in liaison comments, but let me just, I know you've all got a copy of the charge, and there were some yellow highlights to help
Yep.
highlight the changes. First, I just want to point, there's no real material change in the charge. The most significant change is that we have raised the cap on the amount of funds that can go to an individual household on an annual basis. So it's been increased from $1,000 to $2,000 annually, and to $1,000 on a per event basis, if you will. And I'll just comment that that resulted from a discussion with the trustees of town donations who, they collaborated and recognized there's more funds available. And so with that in mind, the Hugh Cargill Trust raised their giving amount. So that's fantastic.
That's awesome. What was it?
Right. It was $1,000 annually.
Oh, okay.
And it's
So
been increased to
so it's been
$2,000
increased.
annually per household.
Got it. But 1,000 per request, so if they had two different things.
Right, correct.
Wendy,
right.
do you know how much the Hugh Cargill Trust distributes every year?
Well, it's about 20, I think they can it's about 26,000 or so that was available to be distributed.
Okay.
They have not distributed that necessarily, but with this increase in the cap, the idea is that they need to get the word out to more of the people who sort of make the referrals, and the goal is to use those funds as best we
But
can.
it's 26,000 available.
I want to say that's what I think it was this last year.
Okay.
I don't think they used it all. But
Okay.
you know what? When the town report comes out, you'll see the details. And I'll follow up and let you know on that.
So while it's not then like a huge dollar amount, it's maybe just a thing on the tax relief committee. You might just
Exactly,
add it just as
exactly.
another potential thing.
We've actually talked about it already in the Hugh Cargill Trust. So for tax relief, the current amount is $325 per quarter. They didn't change it for this fiscal year, but it is going to go up to $400 on April 1st for the new fiscal year, so they have increased that. Now, there's an appeal that's going out in the next month for the tax relief, so after that appeal, some time is set, they'll see if there's additional funds and whether they'll raise that relief even more.
Are there defined criteria?
Yes,
There are.
all of them. So the tax relief is consistent with the senior means tested relief.
Got it.
At least the income limits are. Let me just say that. So the other part of this charter, I'll just say,
Yep.
what we did was sort of memorialize the other funds that are managed through the Hugh Cargill Trust. So these aren't new changes but what we have done is sort of put them in writing so that people are more aware of what's being managed. And specifically, that's the Silent Fund as well as the Concord Cares funds. So,
Any questions for Wendy?
I think
No,
it's good
this looks
changes.
really good.
but Hugh Cargill Trust already voted in this charter, so I think we need a vote to accept it.
Yes.
The change.
Move to approve the amendments for the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee charge.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. And thank them
Yes.
for the work they do.
It's a
It
lot of
helps.
hard work.
It helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
Really is.
Important.
I'm assuming the work that they do was part of what the tax relief
Yes.
task force will be looking at.
No,
as
no,
far-
Well, no. So the tax relief actually will look at, to Cameron's point,
Yep.
sort of what are the options and what
Yeah,
are,
it should
what
be
are the
That's what I
trends
meant.
been?
Yeah.
So yes,
Okay, great.
yes, yes.
Great. Okay,
Okay.
moving right along. 6:25. Okay, let's now talk about the draft letter that we have to the EPA and the Department of Justice based on the presentation and the hearing we had last week regarding 2229 Main Street. You see the text of the letter, which the chair of the task force, Mr. Bohm, helped draft. And basically, it's asking, you can read it, it's very straightforward. You know,
Short and sweet.
We want to go forward. We still have questions around the costs, the liens, and the risks. And so, but we are interested to continue conversations. Mr. Bohm, have I captured that? It's a very straightforward letter.
right.
Yep.
Any
it's great.
discussion?
So I don't have any changes to the content, but I had some sort of administrative changes.
Yeah.
Like, I think where it says, Dear Addie Fisk and Sarah Meeks, I think it should be more formal, like Attorney Fisk, or put Esquire in, or something. I just think that's too informal. This is a very formal notification.
Okay, yep.
And then I think there should be more CCs at the end. I think a copy should go to, I can give all this to Andrea if you want this, but the 2229 Advisory Task Force, the 2229 Oversight Committee was asking about this the other day.
Well, it's public record, though.
I know, but they should have a copy. They've been working on this. I think the town manager and Carrie and Megan should have copies, and Mina should get a copy. I just think we should formal
Doesn't
letter.
hurt. It doesn't
And
hurt.
the
Yeah.
other thing that I was wondering is whether we should indicate in the letter that we took, I think we took a vote, or we're going to take a vote now. So I was wondering if there should be a sentence or something saying, you know, on February 24th, the Select Board voted that we are interested in beginning discussions and negotiations with you. I don't know. I just,
How do other people feel?
I mean, Terry, I agree with everything you said. The last point, I think it's okay the way it's written in
Yeah.
writing to notify you of the town of Concord's interest. So
Okay.
I'd
Yeah,
probably be okay with that.
I think it's okay.
Okay with that?
I do,
What about you, Mike?
yeah.
You okay?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we're going to vote to approve this letter, so that's a vote.
Right?
Okay.
Okay.
So the changes that I heard are we're going to have a more formal designation for the attorneys Fisk and Meeks.
Right.
And we're going to add to the CC list the 2229 Advisory Task Force, the members there, the 2229 Oversight Committee, Town Manager, Deputy Town Manager, Mina and
Yep.
Nina, right? And probably Alyssa?
yeah, do you think any other staff needs a copy, Carrie?
I think myself and Megan is sufficient.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Great.
I do think it makes sense to notify the other boards, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing that. Very good.
All right. Move to approve the draft letter in support of the environmental, to support the EPA, Department of Justice. Whoops.
Sorry, can I ask one?
Sorry.
I just saw this, I apologize, but the
No.
Town of Concord letter of interest, I guess letter of interest and intent, I'm not sure.
Well, our intent to move
Decided our
forward.
intent is to, yeah, I guess I'm thinking of it,
I
of
don't-
a
yeah.
letter of intent, which is more to like a formal, like buying something.
But the body of the letter doesn't.
I think it's intent to negotiate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move to approve the draft letter to the EPA as discussed.
Second?
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Very good. That's a big one off our plate.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, it's a big one. It's another beginning.
Yeah,
We're
right.
transitioning into the next
end of the
phase.
beginning.
It's the end of the beginning, right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. That was good. It's 6:30, and we're ahead of schedule.
Good.
Is the person,
Bill's here.
That's
Bill,
okay.
are you ready to do the personnel? Okay, great.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a public hearing, we can be ahead of schedule.
Is the presentation available for the, I mean, it's in the packet.
It is.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Andrea can bring it up if she.
Andrew's going to bring it up.
I'm Bill Morachak, co-chair of the Personnel Board.
Hi.
Glad to be here. I really want to thank both Mary and Mark and the other members of the Select Board to allow us to have a few minutes here tonight to talk about the Personnel Board, and in particular, we're going to talk about the new Personnel Board charge. So my goal tonight is to be able to present, have a conversation about the charge and/or other duties, responsibilities that might be appropriate for the Personnel Board to think about in the future from a strategic point of view. So I'm going to start with the Personnel Bylaw. A little background in terms of content, concept. This is just taken directly from the Personnel Bylaw. I just wanted to restate it for purposes of my presentation. These are the purpose and application. They happen to fall into the very first page of the Personnel Bylaw. Yeah. We're going to go on to a little history. I thought a little history might be a good way to sort of frame some of the work that's been done, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years, but also to lay the groundwork for how did the Personnel Board get started. 1921, 1952, the town charter. 1985, that's when the town established an HR organization. That was also the time when the Personnel Board charge was adopted. Keep in mind, we're now at 2025, so after a few years, we're finally going to update the Personnel Board charge. There was a governance study back in 2014 that has some really important information, but I think when we moved to 2021, that was when the board approved the Personnel Study Task Force. That was a really critical moment, I think, not only for the town, but also for the presence of a select board in the town of Concord, because it really gave an opportunity for individuals who are on the study committee, but also other citizens, to provide their input in terms of how can the Personnel Board be as effective and as efficient as possible. The Personnel Study Task Force presented their report in 2022. Also in 2022, the town engaged an outside firm. This was really under the leadership of the town manager, Carrie LaFleur, in saying we needed to undertake a study to deal with the redesign of the town's classification, compensation plan, and other aspects of the administrative part about the Personnel Board. We did hire, or the town hired, a consultant, Kimberly Crum, who was engaged. She was instrumental in being able to accomplish a lot of the project needs for the Personnel Board and for the town. And she'll be ending her relationship, I guess, at the end of June. 2023, we started a dashboard. And the purpose of this dashboard, which was essentially a collaboration between the Personnel Board and the HR organization, the town, it was intended to serve the purpose of monitoring as well for recruitment as for retention. I think it's a start. We've got a lot more opportunity to embellish this as we move forward. 2024 had the approval of the town meeting of the new classification and compensation plan and the new personnel bylaw. And now we're at 2025. And on this history, it's time tonight to talk about the new charge. Now, the next is the Personnel Board members. I just wanted to put this up there because these are individuals that have really done an admirable job. Not that we are unique at all in the contributions. There are so many other boards and so many other citizens in town who are volunteers, who are contributing. Liz Cobbs will be leaving the board, and we will be looking for a replacement. And obviously, we're open to any suggestions or nominate, or ideas that you might have.
Bill, when is that? When was Liz's
Today.
tenure up?
Oh, her
She
time is
resigned
up.
today.
Her time is up.
Oh, it's up now.
No,
No,
I think it would have
She
been.
resigned today.
She
Oh, she
resigned
resigned. Oh.
today.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
She resigned today.
But her term would have ended in May,
got it,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so now okay, so this will, gotcha.
a little bit of a gap.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just mention that each of these individuals is an HR professional in their own right, working in the private sector and even in the public sector. So we really do have an exceptionally well-qualified personnel board at the moment.
That's very kind.
That's great.
I think the other interesting thing about this list is that we have an individual who is the head of HR for the town of Wayland. And
Right.
that's been a very positive addition, because it gives us an opportunity to really cover, I think, a larger bandwidth of best practices and gathering of data in order to make decisions. So I also had the additional contributors. And I just wanted to sort of give them the recognition that they're due. The Personnel Study Task Force, they're listed there. And this report that was generated, which I have in my hand here, and many of you may have seen it or may not, this is the kind of work that is, on the scale, if you went to the Harvard Business School, then you had to be able to document your case. This is a good example that the town can use for other task forces. There are many, many, many suggestions, recommendations, ideas that are presented there. Obviously, it was the need and the review and the work done to have a brand-new wage and compensation program. That was key to the findings. So there are too many in order for me to be able to enumerate, but I do think it's a document that we on the Personnel Board continue to take a look at and ensure that we're trying to accomplish some of these ideas. And the town of Concord, I mean, these are the individuals under the leadership of the town manager, Carrie LaFleur. These are the human resources professionals who are there supporting us and who are always, in some ways, they're in the background and they don't get the kind of recognition that others do. But I just wanted to give them an opportunity for you to see who they are. All right, so we're going to move on to the Personnel Board charge. And this was the work of the board, plus conversations with members of the select board, plus the town manager. Mark Howell was instrumental in guiding us. I want to recognize Terry Ackerman, who was our previous liaison to the board. She was always willing to offer suggestions and add ideas and so forth. So I really feel, and the board feels, that we have gotten wonderful support. And I think this is a product, this charge tonight, the Personnel Board charge, is something which, should deserve some consideration on your part. I think there are, the last part of this, which is the expectations, goals, initiatives. We came up with those 4. Could we have come up with additional? This starts with the very last of the strategize and advise. We could have come up with probably 4 or 5 times that. But this, we thought, at least at this point, was representative of how the Personnel Board should be spending its time. So I'm open up for any questions, any comments that you might have, or any suggestions.
So first, thank you, Bill. Thank you for your leadership of the board. I'd also like to thank Liz Cobbs for her nearly 3 years of service on the board. She has really contributed a great deal to rebuilding the Personnel Board. A few years ago, the Personnel Board was really questioning its very purpose, and it's important for us, I think, as the Select Board, to recognize that the existence of the Personnel Board is written into the town charter. So they are, in some senses, not a creation one of our committee charges in the usual sense. So the charge that we're discussing is a slightly different document than what we're used to. The reason that we distributed the personnel bylaw as updated in June of at last year's town meeting in 2024, was because a lot of the things that we normally find in charges, how many people there are and what their terms are and those kinds of things are already there. Some of the things that came out of the personnel bylaw during that same update were things that really rightly belong in the employee handbook. Things like how many vacation days do people accrue and some really administrative stuff. So this is all really by way of updating something that has stood in 1985, since 1985, and really had sort of outlived its usefulness. So this is an opportunity for us to reorient the Personnel Board as a policy board, but also, I think most importantly, to make that, to have a dialogue with the Personnel Board about how to dovetail their policy implementation in the area of our responsibilities as an employer with the policies that we're pursuing as a board. We don't have time to pay a lot of direct attention to how personnel administration is, but talent and personnel is one of the key resources that this community has. And so making an investment in a helpful and a constructive dialogue with the Personnel Board, I think really fosters that opportunity for us to demonstrate what that we can be a good employer and a desirable place to work. The Personnel Study Task Force, frankly, came out of some real concerns about how personnel administration had been pursued in some time. So those are a couple of my initial comments. So we talked about what I anticipate we're doing here is giving you an opportunity to read this charge and then consider what sort of expectations and agreements should we be making with the Personnel Board to coordinate effort and policy. And I think that it's an opportunity for us. I have a couple of suggestions along those lines that are not in front of the document that you're looking at. And what I'm expecting from here is that the Personnel Board will go back and discuss our suggestions. And then we would reach an agreement and both boards would vote the charge more as a document of understanding between boards rather than something that we're just handing out to them. If you'd like to hear the suggestions, I can keep going. Or
Well, let's see if we have got other questions.
Any other
first, and then
comments?
we'll get back to that.
Yeah, thank you for working so hard on this, Mark. I know you've been all involved in it, and Bill, you've been working on it for years now, so it's great. So, yeah, my first question was going to be why this charge was not in the same format as all the other charges we see, and I think you answered that, because when I turned to the next page, the bylaw, it already says all that, so you didn't want to repeat.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was one of the issues that we had before,
Okay.
was that we had duplicate information in some of the older
Yeah.
documents, which made it hard to understand which was really enforced. So the board has worked pretty hard to make sure that,
Okay.
that things appear in one place and one place only.
All right, and then, so I'm wondering about the goals. I think the goals are really good. It should be a policy-oriented board. We have a professional HR staff that is doing the day-to-day work. But how do you see, for example, if an employee comes to their supervisor and says, I've been taking on more responsibilities and I'm in grade 14 now and I should really be in 15. Can you, go up to the Personnel Board and get my job description changed and get my grade advanced? Like, is that something the HR director is going to be doing, or will the Personnel Board advise and be involved in that process?
So two things that have occurred in the last 2 years that are really noteworthy is the town completed a class and compensation,
Right.
a comprehensive class and compensation restructuring, which was the first time in over a decade,
Right.
even though the policies had said in the past that it was supposed to be done
Right.
about every 3 years. And as part of that work, and Bill referenced it, it's been the work that Kimberly Crum has been doing. They have also systematically gone through and redone
Right,
virtually every single job
right, right.
description.
But
And so
now,
now those job descriptions come to the board, and the board approves them based on a rubric which is understood by the board, which is another thing that was new. In the past, the way of actually classifying a job was kind of a black box.
right, right. So we have a handbook now of, do you get points, for education, experience, and judgment, and all those things, right? But let's say 3 years from now, because we have a really good system now, but how about if an employee, their job changes a little bit, or they think it does, and they want to come to the personnel board and have a review to get a promotion or get recognized for what they're already doing? Is there a system where those points are added up again, or the job description's changed and approved? Like, does the board get involved, or is this strictly a day-to-day HR thing?
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
Maybe
thank
Carrie
you.
knows.
To jump in. So I would say that's an administrative day-to-day task. Either a manager or supervisor could raise that issue with HR first. An employee could raise that issue. We go through a process to review classification based on the system that we have in place. And when we are expecting, or we would like to propose a change, we've been proposing that to the Personnel Board for review. We talk it through.
Oh, okay.
And they can, I don't know what official action, it's been a little bit since we've done that, but I think the board is either approving, consenting to the placement, or, would ask us to take another look at it.
We vote. We
Seems to
vote
me there
on
was
that.
one at last week's meeting, wasn't there?
Yeah.
There was, yeah.
Yeah.
But we would not expect employees to bypass any internal process or
No.
Right.
go directly to the board.
Well, that sounds like a really good process, because in the past, the board was not involved at all in those changes. And I think having the board sign off on the change after all the work's been done by the staff, and I think that's a really good check and balance. That sounds great. Thank you.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead. Wendy.
No, go ahead.
How many people are covered? Because I know this excludes quite a bit of, people with collective bargaining agreements, people in the school.
It's
How many
about
people?
175, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that might, across, including enterprise funds. That makes sense.
What did you say? How many?
174, 175. Now, there are also the temps, which
In the rec
are
department,
on a different schedule,
Yep.
but that's,
in the recreation department?
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay. And how many, that's quite a few.
I think
right.
that's.
That is
I saw the
Seasonal
number
too,
700.
right?
Yeah, hundreds.
Hundreds, right. Okay. Thank you. I've got another question. So it looks like we've got job descriptions for everyone. That sounds
Yes.
great. That is wonderful. Do we have regular performance reviews or performance reviews done regularly for people?
Yes, but I think I should defer to. let
Yeah,
Carrie-
so I think the last time that Kimberly Crum was here and addressed the board, we talked about goals and we talked about
Yep.
the new
Right.
performance review system
Yep.
that we have implemented, and we've done our first round of training with managers and supervisors, and we'll be putting that in place as of the end of this fiscal year. So the first review under the new plan will be as of the end of this fiscal year.
Great. Okay, good to hear that. We've come a long way in the
Yeah.
last few years, so thank you for the work you've done, and thank you for the work that the town has done, and thank you for recognizing that we needed outside help and bringing that in as well, and I think that helped a lot. The only question I have when I look at the goals would be, one of the goals that was included was to address diversity and inclusivity in our workforce, and how are we doing that?
Oh, were you? I was thinking about how to respond. Do you have something that
No,
you
why
want
don't
to say?
go? Because it's really, it's a procedural thing that you're.
Yeah, so we have an internal staff person who has been, in addition to regular duties, has been advancing equity and inclusivity initiatives. You know, one of the latest things is a monthly. It's just a one-page Inclusion Chronicles is what it's called, and it's just a very quick. It's got a couple of different stories in it or information about different things. It's been very well received by employees. So that's one of the things that we are doing. But when we went through all of the job descriptions, we made sure they were updated to reflect, updated practices. We're advertising in a variety of different places and doing particular outreach in certain areas. I couldn't tell you off of the top of my head. I know I often hear questions about the diversity of the workforce. I think diversity means a lot of different things, and I think we have a very diverse workforce, including significant female FTE in public safety, both police and fire. It's funny when you talk about women in roles traditionally held by men. I think people forget that that's a diversity, a mark of diversity. We have a number of engineers and females in engineering positions and IT positions, but we also have a lot of diversity in just our employee base as well. And it's not something we talk. I mean, to me, not everybody wants to talk about their diversity, right? And so we don't make an issue of it, but what we do is we make every attempt to be inclusive and making sure that people feel welcomed and valued within the organization. And I think we've made a lot of positive progress there.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, so a couple things. So, I mean, again, thanks for all the work here. So just, and it's great that we have such a qualified group, right? So I'm looking, just kind of tying it to the personnel bylaw from last year, right? So looking at that, I mean, it specifically really says that the personnel board is, there for the town manager, right? So the duties and responsibilities shall advise the town manager, shall provide advice and recommendations to the town manager. So as I understand it, it's exactly the charge is not set up to necessarily advise the select board, right? Is that, I mean, am I?
Right, well, it could, but yes, the words are not there.
Yeah, no, so my point only being, like, if it's advising, really sort of advising the town manager. So one of the key things on the charge is, are you, how does the town manager, Carrie, how do you feel about, like, what is it that you need to successfully run the organization?
Yeah.
Right.
And we've had a lot of those conversations over the last several years, and a lot of that is included in what is in front of you tonight.
Yeah, because I think that's obviously really important. If that's the charge of the group, is to say, hey, look, the charge is to support the town manager. I mean, separate question, I wonder, what our role is then if it's not in the bylaws.
Well, our role, first and foremost, is to appoint the board. And it is a support function to the town manager. And having thought about this for a long time and really looked at it, it seems to me that this is our opportunity for a level of citizen contribution, oversight, and understanding in a relative, in a sensitive and important area for the community to really sort of help define what kind of employer are we. and how do we recognize our values as a community in terms of that advice and guidance that is being offered to the town manager from the citizens. And that's why I think it's an interesting question to say, okay, this is the charge that the personnel board would give themselves and the goals that they recognize. What can we contribute to those goals that represents our view as what the town might need? And so as I mentioned before, I have a couple of thoughts along those lines. So and these to some extent come out of findings from the Personnel Study Task Force, which identified some concerns. Some of those concerns had to do with recruitment and retention, and employee satisfaction. And so what I would suggest that we might ask the Personnel Board to do for us is to report at least annually in June so that it fits in with our evaluation cycle for the town manager and for ourselves on the status of recruitment and retention and the assessment of employee satisfaction or morale, as well as an overview of any HR initiatives that are pending for the fiscal year. Like, for example, we've heard about conversion to Munis payroll from the ADP payroll. That's an example of a town manager initiative that the Personnel Board is in a position to be closer to and understand its impact on employees. And by the way, this board regularly invites comments at their meetings from employees and supervisors, and have received input from the professional staff about what they're seeing, and I would encourage them to continue to do that. And and in that report also any recommendations to the select board that we might want to incorporate into our goals related to personnel and talent for the upcoming fiscal year. So those were three things: status of recruiting and retention, employee morale, HR administration or HR initiatives, and recommendations for our goals would be what I would suggest we might want to send back, and some of you may have other ideas.
I think that's a really, really good idea. And like, for example, this year, it would be important to talk about how the first cycle of performance review was going. We'd like to hear back. And it would be great to meet with you once a year like that and hear how things are going.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about, with this group that has such great experience, it's almost like the list could keep growing.
Yeah.
It's almost like as much as you're willing to take on. I mean, I hate to say that, but because I started writing down things like, do you have examples of what other towns have done? Do you have, are there benchmarks or best practices because of the other things you've done in your careers that you can bring to the table? Is there not only just like, hey, let's track employee morale, but what's advice on best actions? What's advice on, hey, things that I've seen that have worked well? The only challenge being you may have to decide how much of that you want to take on, right? Because the list can get really long but I mean, I think I would be thirsty for how do we leverage your expertise?
Yeah.
Well, I will say that when I was liaison, that was the main thing that both the task force and the personnel board spent a lot of time on those kind of questions, best practices and comps, and those things did get leveraged into these documents that you have now and into our new system that Kerry brought in, and so yes, it's so much better than it was. It's really, really.
So as a start, how about with the charge, we start by adding the 3 or 4 things that Mark mentioned, which I heard: an update on recruitment and retention, an update on employee morale and HR initiatives. And then I also heard something about any warrant articles, but I'm curious
I was
the
just
timing.
suggesting that if they have goals that we think we should be incorporating at our level, into our goals or into goals for the town manager, that they could provide us with input about what those
So
goals
that was,
might be.
that
was the
speaks to the
third thing.
timing of this, of
Yeah.
when this would be done,
Right.
right? So you would, what would be the ideal time?
I think that ideally it would be, we would get that input in June or,
Okay.
early July.
Great.
Annually, so that it fits in with our cycle of self-evaluation and town manager
I like that,
evaluation.
yeah. So,
So the other thing that I just want to compliment just the whole team, because I know over the last couple of years, this has been an ongoing
Yes.
effort, and you've grappled with some really tough issues and put some fantastic structure in place in the performance management, and Kimberly Crum's done an awful lot to bring
Yeah.
that structure to the town, and so thank her. I know she's not here, but it goes to the committee. One of the other things that I would like to hear about as you talk about employee morale is a little more about our benefits, because I know we have a retirement board, but when we think about changes to benefits, like health benefits, that has a significant impact to our employees, and I think we should be aware of it. I know we always hear from a financial perspective, and I trust we're doing the right thing, but some awareness to how employees
Okay.
are feeling about that, I think is helpful as well. And I
So-
don't know the right timing, it's just.
so Wendy, are you saying as part of the employee morale, how people feel about the benefits, or an update on the benefits?
Morale is sort of what's
Okay.
going on, what's hot, what's
Yeah, it's
bothering
certainly a
employees,
factor
what are they
with-
looking for?
Right, I
What makes
don't-
us more competitive in
It's
the
a
market, that
retention
kind of-
factor and a
Yeah, it's
recruitment
retention.
factor.
Right, I think it'll vary each year, Mary. I don't think
Well,
we should write down every single
no,
thing. It should
I
be
don't
more
either.
that we
Periodic
have a tradition of the Personnel Board coming in every June and saying what's hot, what are suggestions, what have they done this year?
If that's the right time,
that
you
feel
help
right
us
to you?
decide.
Absolutely.
Great,
Yeah,
good.
yeah, great.
Okay.
Thank you all.
So,
Thank you. We gave you more work.
There you go.
So did we give you feedback on the charter? Are we going to come back and
So-
see this again?
Yeah, what I'm anticipating is that if there is input, can we do this where we send it to Andrea and I'll bring it back on behalf of the board to the personnel board and ask them to
Sure.
craft a letter and come up with a final draft of the charge.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
How much time do you need for that, do you think?
2 meetings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So, Andrea, you put that on our, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. And once again, thanks to our departing member, and if you too are an HR professional looking for part-time work,
We have an
please
opening.
submit that
have an
volunteer card. We do have an opening.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is looking at a draft of the Land Use Matrix Task Force charge. This is really a draft, and it's a very preliminary conversation. I am not ready to start appointing people. I would like to wait until we have our discussion about APP 10 to start appointing people or nominating people. But I would very much like to hear your feedback on what we've put together. I worked with Megan quite a bit on this. So, I'm sure you've read it.
Yes.
So I'd like to just get some feedback.
Yeah, so thank you for pulling it together. I know these things are always a lot of work, and it's especially when you're starting something from scratch, right?
Yeah.
My question as I read through this, Mary, was
Yep.
around really sort of clarifying kind of the scope of this, because we have these individual groups, right?
Yep.
And then we're kind of saying, hey, here's a group that's kind of either over top that group or,
Yep.
right? So are we, and at one point it kind of read to me like, hey, this is kind of just to look at sort of the public works and the safety buildings.
Yep.
In other places, it's kind of sounds like, hey, make recommendations overall.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to
Yeah,
You're right.
have a discussion
right.
around kind of the scope of what this group
right.
Yep.
is
Well,
gonna do.
well, Megan, you jump in whenever you feel. This is complicated,
Yep.
okay? And we could have started here, or we could have started here. And we decided to start with the municipal needs first, and then it would expand into other needs. But I will say that the way it's written now, it does appear to say, what are our most urgent needs? and what's the best place for them to go. And then things will start moving after that. So we had to start somewhere.
So I think we should spell that out, because that, look, that we start with the urgent needs, I guess, because I did get.
You don't think it's spelled out here?
It's not
Not
clear
exactly.
to me if you, because if I'm thinking about like the individual groups, so MCI is going to advise on, hey, what's the best use of MCI?
Right.
229 Main, same thing, et cetera, et cetera. So is this group to, I don't want to get to a situation where it's like this group's sort of recommending one thing, but that group's recommending another thing.
That's a good,
We're in
Well, that's
we're in a
the
tricky place because there's at least sort of two important tracks. One of them is that there are several significant parcels of land that are becoming available, and the town should have a roadmap for how to leverage those parcels of land. Then there's then MCI Concord represents an opportunity where a lot of boards and committees are going to see some portion of that property as being a potential solution to some of the goals that they have. And I feel very strongly that the town administration should be right there saying, if we could have X from the MCI parcel, this is how we would use it, and this is how it would fit into that roadmap of what's going to make our overall operations efficient. And that actually, in my mind, is for the most part, a piece of staff work. And I know I've talked to Carrie and I've talked to Megan a little bit about this. I feel very strongly that staff and the town manager need to come forward and say, this is how we could best administer what we know about, and eventually come back and ask for support from us as a board for putting that forward in whatever form eventually gets worked out to prioritize, what do we ask for when we go to the state and say, these are the things we want from MCI, or this is what we might want to reserve at 2229 Main Street, or this is how we think the Peabody School should be reused. So that, I think we need to be comfortable with the fact that there's kind of this dual mandate, which is one is look at all these parcels, and then the other one is, okay, and by the way, be ready with an ask for MCI.
When do you think we would need that?
Yes, it's the struggle.
Yeah.
yeah, the
MCI
timing.
timeline, I just don't know what it is. I don't know what this timeline is. I know we need a plan. That's what.
Yeah, I think there are things that are pushing us along. I mean, we have the wastewater treatment facility, which is already essentially in negotiations.
Yes.
Right.
And that's by its very nature automatically a part of, a new public works landscape, which gets factored into this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the slightly further out, but not that much further out, opportunity for 229 Main Street. And, June 30th is when Peabody School becomes available for reuse. So
that's,
the sooner the better.
Yeah, but you said the town manager should be ready to say, by when? By June 30th? Or what do you, because I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, I think staff should be working on this now, and I think that the advantage of putting together a working group is to provide an opportunity, a sounding board for that work that the staff is doing, that ideally gets the relevant boards and committees that work with these different departments on board with, this is the thinking that seems to make the most sense for how municipal uses are going. And that's what I'd like to see come out of this.
okay, so let me make sure I understand what you're saying, right? So you're saying that ahead of the work of this particular task force, that staff would decide or research what they need for both public safety and public works?
I think they need to prioritize those needs, yes.
Okay, and that they
You're
would
saying-
bring them forward to this task
Right,
force?
because the people that we're putting on here are citizens. They're members of the Public Works Commissions and other policy boards. They don't have the detailed information about what are the programmatic deficiencies of our public safety buildings.
Okay, can I ask you this? Do you think that that could be done with staff? In other words,
Yes.
concurrently? So could the work of this committee with the people that tentatively we have listed be doing that work concurrently with staff? Because that's how I envision it, the work happening, the way it's written here. Would that work?
Maybe, I think it might go slower.
It's gonna,
Yeah,
what do you think? Wait,
it's-
Carrie's got some.
So there isn't a week that goes by that we don't have this conversation, right, at various levels. We have the 2020 facilities plan that clearly outlines the programmatic needs, and I don't think that they have changed much since that report. So I have people who could have come here this evening to make a case for locating, to have a consolidated location at any one of these sites. Mark, I did hear you say you would be looking for staff, maybe me, to make a recommendation on which comes first. That is difficult because both of our facilities are in equal states of disrepair, the ones that we're talking about. And so for me, it's which comes first is dependent on what's available first. So I can tell you, we can make a case to do a consolidation of almost everything at MCI Concord except public safety, because if main fire station is there, we likely need a second substation. So that's not a good location. But I don't know if the community is interested in the trade-off of trading that valuable commercial property for municipal. But is it more interested if some of that property is available for municipal and the Keyes Road campus becomes available, which I've talked about many times. It's in the center, it's walkable to the train, it's walkable to shops downtown. So I think it would be very hard for us to put forward a case for one versus the other without knowing what comes first. We could put forward, everything that should be considered, and if parcel A is what is available first, this is what could go there, but
So let me ask this question. What do you think it might be the best way or format or procedure to use to decide what should go first?
I mean, I envision a map with pictures of buildings that get, at the different locations, you can have A, B, C, D, and, talk about make a case for each of those different consolidations. And I think this is where it would be helpful to have a mix of staff and people from a variety of committees and a couple of at-large.
I think when we looked at the membership, maybe we didn't emphasize enough how much staff is going to be involved in these conversations. It says here that they'll be as needed basis. Obviously they're going to have a much stronger voice in these.
Yeah, so I think this is just, for exploratory here on the charge here, right? So Carrie, do you think that you would want this committee to help develop the options for public works and safety, or is it more, hey, you can come up with the options and feed these options to the committee? Say, hey, look, we've outlined here's 2 or 3 potential options as to, where and how we would do those things. Take that into, so you know what I mean? I'm just trying to understand.
I think I would see this group as more an opportunity to vet the different options rather than come up with the, I think we know what the options are, and we have the needs.
So you're gonna feed the options, vet the options. Because to me, I think, I was starting to think about it as the charge really being 2 very specific things. So one is very specifically looking at public works and public safety.
Yes.
And okay, let's get the options from the town manager, and let's sort of say, okay, what could we do on that? And then to me, the second one is almost what I would call kind of like an integrated design role. So that's how I think of it, like in my job, which is we have all these different programs. Everybody's doing their own program, 2229 Main, you know, MCI, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody has to look across and say, hey, wait a second, if everyone says we should do the exact same type of, do you know what I mean? If everybody says we should have no recreation and no open space and all this and all that, and then you look across and go, wait, that doesn't make sense for the town in
Right.
total,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, you
Yes.
know, let's look at that kind of integrated design.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's
Yes.
So
helpful.
the only question I have is the integration with MCI, because I don't know necessarily what's going on there, but they seem to have a path, and they're going to have momentum, and they're going to go forward. So at what point does MCI start saying, this is what we want here, and then how do we integrate?
That's a
I mean,
great question.
That's the concern I have. I don't have a right or
Yeah.
a recommendation or anything,
And
but
it's hard, because the
this-
timing's never perfect, right?
It isn't,
Exactly,
but if we
exactly.
can start with what the, the two big boulders, right? So where are the best places and the options? Maybe that does inform
Right.
MCI.
Especially because the wastewater treatment facility is driving a negotiation that, as we know, leads to a potential acquisition of land, real property, to the town. And the question is, how big is that property and what's its purpose? And so ideally, we would know the answer to the question that this group is going to do, so that when we start saying,
Right.
what do we want, we already know that is optimal. Now, I think the state has so far been quite flexible about the exact timing of what that is, but as I said, the sooner we have an idea of how this fits together, the better, because that would allow us, I think, to be more specific about what we would really like to see.
One of the advantages is that the MCI Advisory Board is looking just at MCI.
Right,
So-
and
So
that's-
hopefully this will help integrate that as
Right.
part of a bigger thing that's happening townwide.
And you have MCI on here as a representative,
We
so I
do,
get that.
we do.
Right.
So, but the MCI Advisory Board has momentum,
Yeah,
right? So,
that's-
and they're working very well, and we've got to make sure that we get this going. But I do think, though, Terry, back to your point earlier, I think we tried to address, we said the primary consideration of the working group is the fact that the Concord faces critical challenges in public works and DPW. So, back to your.
I think that's good. I think,
I forgot to get back to you on
well,
that. so-
that's okay. I really like the idea of Carrie and Megan and staff coming up with the options and then having the committee vet the options.
I think,
I think that's
Yeah.
going to work really well. And it seems like public safety and public works might be the drivers that are going to, because you've got domino effects and everything. You've got to put those pieces in first to see what the rest of your plan is. So I'm thinking the way you've written this might actually make sense. Whereas I think it depends. I guess like at 222 Main, one of the drivers is that sphagnum bog, which is a natural resources. So it depends, but in general, I think public safety and public works are our most critical needs,
You
right?
got to look at all
Well, if
the
we-
locations where they're an option, right? I mean,
Exactly.
right, well,
And
we've
then-
got uses and we've got available land. So at 2229 Main, the
Makes
Sphagnum
sense.
Bus is not available land.
Right,
I
but
mean,
there
it's
is
very,
buildable land there, right?
but it's,
I
it's
know,
more like
it's
what's
limited.
available.
Yep. Right.
I'm going to open it up for any public comment on this first draft, if anybody has any comments. Mr. Brum, do you want to speak?
Hi, Paul Bohm, 11 Ridgewood Road. I really sympathize that you're struggling with this. This is very, very complicated. My observation on the charge, though, is it's inconsistent, as Cameron said, because you start out pretty broad, and then you narrow down into municipal needs. I think the opportunity part of these properties is kind of missing. The municipal need is clear, and we have to take care of those, public works, fire, safety, but there's a big opportunity on the commercial development side,
Yeah.
on the housing side, on the recreation side. I'm not saying they are highest priorities of all those, but I think the charge of this committee needs to kind of look big, but then narrow down with input from from other entities. For example, also on the list of documents, there's no referral to the housing development plans. There's no referral to the recreation facility strategic plan. So I'm just saying, I think we have opportunities here and we have needs, and they certainly are driven largely by municipal needs and public works and safety. But I think this charge has to be bigger than those needs, and the recommendations ultimately have to be bigger than those needs. The recommendations here are fairly narrow, so I don't have any solutions, but I would start big and then get narrow on this. And I think getting the input from staff on public works, just what's needed and appropriate, is one of those pieces. But I think it's only one of the pieces here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it feels like there's a phasing piece to this, right? Because when you start talking housing and then all the possibilities at all the land, it's different. We have our priorities, our municipal needs right now. So maybe we start there. I think we have to do that because
that is what we were thinking.
right.
We have to start somewhere.
We have to start,
right?
and then something
It's
will.
too broad. So what we talked about, Megan, is that we would start with the municipal needs because we know they're urgent. And that, of course, it would grow into the recreation,
Yeah.
and the housing and open space and
Right.
other things, and
Right.
commercial development.
So I think what I was
So
saying
maybe
was.
we need to simply write that in.
Exactly,
Right,
that's all I'm
so-
saying, is in the purpose.
Because this is too, okay.
Right.
Initially, the focus.
And I'd probably
is
put
on-
commercial development first.
Yeah.
But, yeah. You think?
Right, so all we have to do is wordsmith the purpose a little and say we
Initial
have an
focus.
urgent
Yeah.
consideration, but we also have opportunities we need to address.
And then with the written reports, we could add the housing production plan, the
Right.
recreation strategic plan. Do we
Right.
have anything written, does anybody know of anything we have written that shows the opportunity for commercial development? And I know we have something written about tourism and how tourism adds to
Has
the
MCI
revenues.
identified anything?
I
If
don't-
anyone has,
I'm
it
not
would
aware
be
of-
for the
We're-
MCI.
MCI
Any-
is going to develop something.
Okay.
So I don't think there is.
Mimi might have.
It's going to
Oh, yeah.
be, it's
It's
going to relate to the economic opportunity of that site,
Yeah,
though.
no,
It's not
I'm-
going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the-
Yeah.
I'm looking more as a broad grounding
Right.
document. I do know we have some information about tourism, which is basically talking to the villages and how we keep the villages vibrant, but it doesn't talk about, other commercial development beyond.
Well, we don't have to write down
Centers.
every single report, it just says these include.
Okay, we'll add
so
that, that's good.
That's fine.
Anything else?
Well, I would ask us to consider on the membership,
Yep. Yeah.
potentially the recreation committee.
Okay.
I know we have a number of them listed here. We talked about recreation there in a couple of
Right.
places, so I would put that forward for consideration. And then my only other question was tactically, just, Mary, do you want us to feed you any suggested edits, or?
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just,
Yeah,
I mean,
just
Rather
suggested.
than try to sit here and say, okay, it's,
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Right, 'cause I-
Okay.
Say,
Yep.
consider this.
Right, I have a couple of typos and stuff like that.
That's
I'll
fine,
send
yes,
them. Okay.
feed those to me, and it'll probably be a couple of weeks before I bring this back.
But we want to get going, right? So, I mean,
Well,
we just.
we want to get going, but the other consideration we have to think about is that the membership includes someone from the Select Board and the School Committee. We have elections coming up for the Select Board and the School Committee. That might change the membership of those boards and committees, so who we appoint, our pieces are in flux, so we might want to. And also, I want to wait until APP 10, I think is, because this.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one next
But,
week. Maybe
but
we'll do this one.
But
to Wendy's point about getting started, though, I think that it's good that we're expressing support from the board to let the staff
Start.
go ahead and start developing their
Yeah.
their view.
I think they have.
Don't wait for a committee to tell you to get going.
Right,
Wait, say that again?
In other words, the staff can go off and start developing options and.
I think they are.
With the
Already are.
expectation
I
that
think they
they're.
are.
Okay,
I
good.
heard they are.
Yeah, so that's what I thought too, but I'm just saying we're all supportive of that, and,
Parallel
when
we are.
we, when we
Yeah.
get, when we get this group together, then they can be the beneficiaries of that
Okay.
work.
We also have a comment from Diane Proctor. Diane, you want to add to the conversation?
Thank you. I'm just trying to unmute and undo the other things. Diane Proctor, 57 Sudbury Road. Thank you for a very thoughtful and vigorous discussion. I'm wondering if the whole thing is driven by municipal needs, whether we'll lose whether that becomes such a block and also an expensive one. So whether municipal needs need to be balanced against the other needs as perceived by the town, whether it's recreation, whether it's housing, whether it's commercial, in the tax base. And so I just think the synergy of each of those areas is going to be important. And if it's driven predominantly by municipal needs, we may not have the resources to do the building that the municipal needs have. And so I'm curious how you balance that, because I think that's going to be reasonably important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Stefan?
I have a couple of
Stefan has.
quick questions. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, is that okay?
Yep.
Stefan, you want to comment?
I was just going to add that if you're considering adding a member from the Recreation Commission, that I think ought to be someone from the affordable housing community there too, in accordance with APP. I think it's 43 that says that the town should consider any land purchases in the context of affordable housing needs as well.
It's there.
Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust.
We do. We have that specifically listed, Stefan.
Thank you.
We're on it. Thank you.
I have a couple of quick questions. What is Mass House General Appropriation Bill?
It's the DCAM provision for disposition.
That's what I thought. That's the MCI.
We should probably say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And my other question is on the membership. Are we looking for all of these people to be residents of Concord, or could they maybe be business people, or should we say they all have to be residents?
Well, APP 10, I think, allows for non-residents if they bring a unique perspective. And I think on the Economic Vitality Committee, as a matter of fact, we've had.
Right, but like for this, we could specify if we only want residents, or maybe we don't want to specify that.
The other thing is, it's been our practice in the past when we put together a group that is formed of representatives from other groups to actually let that group choose their representative to that committee. So this is written would have us essentially putting together, coming up with two at-large members. And the rest would be selected by the board or
Good
committee
point.
mentioned.
Good point. Yep.
And we can put, or their designee too. If
we could.
Well, that's
what he's saying. It is that they're going to designate.
But they don't have to find someone on their board.
What Terry means is that sometimes, for for example, if you have somebody on a committee who then is, their term ends, they might be designated to continue in that work.
Oh, that's what you're
representing that committee, even though they're no longer on it. We've seen that kind of thing before. And just for those people who are watching us and are concerned about APP 10, this is the kind of thing that we end up doing that sometimes makes it look like people are on more than one board or committee because they are there as a representative of whatever the board they're primarily on.
Yep.
And in this case, I think we want people from those boards.
Yes, I
active,
would
right?
agree
Because
with that.
there's stuff going on in these boards that need to be represented, not just a
This is a
designee.
really good example of why we appoint people to more than one committee.
Right.
Because we need
And
the
APP
depth of
makes
their.
that exception, right?
Right.
We're looking for the communication with that committee to be
Exactly.
represented.
So this is a really good example of that.
in the
Okay, great.
deliberation.
Thank you for that feedback. Send me more. I will bring this, put it together and bring it back.
Good, I think it's a good first draft.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
All right, we're right on time.
Okay.
7:30.
We are? 7:30. What's next?
Listen to teak benches. for
Let's
the
do fun
250.
things now.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the task force was fun. Kind of. This is more fun.
So you might remember me here before. I'm Mimi Graney. I'm the Economic Vitality Manager for the town.
And we received a grant from the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism as part of their Destination Capital Grant to purchase benches to help support the activities of the 250th, particularly to help people take the train to Thoreau Depot and encourage them to be able to walk around, and anticipating people might need a break along that route. So we've identified, we've purchased 15 benches and have identified 15 particular sites to place them. Some of those are on private property, and I've secured approvals from those property owners. And we are ready to install, and just here to get approval from the select board from that. Do folks want to go through those particular locations, or are you?
You did it before, right? But there was one change that I saw, but it looked pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so
Right.
there was one, I think the one in Monument Square
Yeah.
is a new one. So the HDC weighed in on a number of these. That was the one area that kind of was most sensitive for their consideration. We did a site visit. There were a number of different constraints. One, we wanted to make sure that these were age-friendly and ADA compliant, so we wanted them to be on hardscape. We wanted to make sure it was a space that was wide enough to allow for snow removal. We wanted to make sure it was on an area that was already highly trafficked pedestrian-wise, and was kind of equidistant, from the other amenities that we had. So this was sort of a compromise location. That wall is slated for reconstruction by Public Works because it's crumbling. So maybe as soon as next spring or maybe the end of next year. And so for symmetry, the HDC thought to have 2 benches in that location. It was interesting because when I went through the Google Street View, you could see how often people are actually sitting on there. You can see one, there's somebody up on a wall, the other one, people are on the stairs there. So there's definitely like a need for seating there. So the compromise was to put 2 benches up against that wall where the sidewalk is actually wide enough, sufficiently wide there. And then when it needs to be reconstructed, I'll work with Public Works of either maybe replacing them or temporarily moving them somewhere else. We'll kind of figure, cross that bridge when we come to it.
Well, we all know the traffic pattern around the flagpole is particularly interesting and entertaining. So, good placement.
It's great. I mean, there are people at that location all the time, tours, et cetera. Just
When will they be installed, maybe?
as soon as it's warm enough to do so. So right now, they're at the contractor's property, and they're assembling them now. And as soon as we can get the anchors into the ground, we're hoping by the end of the end of March to be able to start doing the ones that are on hardscape.
Great.
And the ones that have ground anchors might be a little later into April, but we're projecting to get them all in for the 250th.
Great. And the grant, remind me again, what was the criteria for the grant?
The criteria was it had to be capital related.
Yep.
It had to support visitors during the 250th.
Okay.
And there was some match, so they gave us $27,000, and I used some of the ARPA Arts and Culture funding to help make up the match for the group of them.
Well, it's going to be a great addition.
This is,
It's
yes.
really going to be nice.
And it refers to 3 years, but do these last as long as they last? Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we're hoping that, so for example, the ones at the library, they're going to maybe maintaining those as part of their set of benches. The 2 that are on natural resources property, that division is taking care of the benches that are kind of on their area. And the other ones, we're hoping, that Public Works is slated to maintain them, but they're probably not going to be with the same kind of rigor. It's sort of a slower maintenance. But you can see some of them that have been out there for a number of years, like the one that actually is under one of the trees here in Monument Square, still looks in good condition.
Yeah.
Sounds like an opportunity for an adopt-a-bench program.
Yeah, really.
So you've got easements from all the private property owners, great, okay.
Good.
That's great.
Great.
Okay,
All right.
motion?
Move to approve final placement of the teak benches for the 250th program.
Second.
All in favor?
Yay.
Very good, thank you. And the
Great.
next?
All right, the next one, I've got another hat on. I'm representing the the newly charged Concord Cultural Council that is overseeing the Concord Center Cultural District. And Lydia is actually coming in on Zoom.
Two members of the committee are hoping, are leading the charge for sort of a modest scale project. Because this is a kind of newly expanded charge for the committee, they haven't executed public art projects or special events before. So for this first year, we're sort of looking at things that are kind of appropriately scaled as they kind of find their way through.
Yep.
And this was a project that had been successfully executed in West Concord, so it's painting signal boxes. So the two signal boxes that the committee is looking to are ones in Thoreau Depot, which is just kind of the edge of the district, but we're sort of seeing these as gateways to Concord Center. And there aren't any traffic signals in Concord Center that would be eligible. So the one is right in front of the Starbucks. The other one is on Thoreau and Main Street. The one on Thoreau and Main Street is in the historic district. And an application was submitted to the HDC, but they're wanting to have some more informal conversations before they'll kind of consider whether that would be appropriately painted. We're hoping that they'll be amenable, considering it's already painted, and right now it's actually looking in pretty bad shape. So, and we're hoping that we could set as part of the guidelines ways in which would be compliant with sort of what would be historically appropriate. So, for example, some of the thoughts that I had is we might want to say that it be inspired by different types of wallpaper, or that it be kind of a horticultural themed, or something that maybe would kind of be in compliance, recognizing it's anachronistic as it is, and that how can we actually make it look better. So that's the one on the left that I'm talking about, is the one that's on Main and Thoreau.
Yep.
But the one on so we'll, I'll have to depending on how the select board feels about this, we might want to separate these two, recognizing that the one at on Main Street, that's part of the Main District, might have a longer lead time to get approval from it. We are doing this as part of the funding through the Mass Cultural Council. That is funding that needs to be appropriated by the end of May. Oh, sorry, by the end of June. But basically, we need to have the vendor identified by May, so there's some time constraints related to that. So we'd be following the same model that had been done in West Concord.
So tonight, what would you like from the board tonight?
So we need provisional approval. So as part of the public art process, especially when it's sort of a new piece that's coming forward, we ask for provisional approval. And then if that's secured, then there would be a call for art, and then we'd come back when the final design was selected.
And when would the HDC sort of weigh in? Is that after you get preliminary designs?
So I don't have control over when that would be. I submitted the application to be on their agenda for early March, and they didn't accept it as a complete application. So I'm not sure what would be their requirement for either a provisional approval and then final approval. There's some discussion about what would be constitute a complete application.
So if we do provisional now for both, you can run as far as you can go. Okay.
Sounds good.
That works,
Exactly.
all right.
Exactly.
Sorry, for you would come back to us with the designs?
Yeah, so the
Final.
select board,
Yes.
the way with the public art process is the select board's the final
Okay.
approval. So there actually is one typo. The Public Works has approved this. I put CPD, but it's actually CPW.
Yeah.
Public Works has said that it's okay to paint these, and they'll prime them.
Okay, so the Concord Cultural Council is the judge of the submissions.
Yes.
The Historic District has to approve one of the two. Once that's
Well-
done, it will come back to the select board to say, here's the
Yeah.
designs, are you okay with it?
Yeah.
All right, got
Yeah.
it.
This is
Thank
just, they're asking us, should we
That's good.
keep
Proceed,
going?
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Great, all right. Motion?
there's
Yeah.
no vote, is there?
Is there a
Is
motion?
there a motion?
I
didn't
think
there
there's,
was.
well, yeah, because we're not really approving, but we
We're not
could.
approving
A
anything.
provisional, do you need
Approve the
provisional
plan.
It's
approval? though?
provisional just to say that we could do a
Okay.
call for art.
Move to provide provisional approval for a call for art.
Great.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Wait,
Mimi.
before you go, Mimi, can I ask a question? There was one of the boxes over in West Concord was hit. I know you was going to ask. Is that going to get replaced and repainted?
So that box was already slated for removal because they're going to be, Public Works is going to be redoing that whole
Yeah,
intersection.
that's right, yeah.
So even if we were to replace it, it probably would only be
Oh.
out for a couple of months anyway.
All right.
So the West Concord Junction Cultural District is sort of meeting late, I think, this week to decide what they want to do. As it was, we were sort of looking at maybe having the artist, when the final one comes in,
Yeah.
to do something with that one.
Okay, that's right. That makes sense. Yeah.
It was a
We want the intersection, though.
We got to get the same, we got to get the same artist because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
beautiful.
he was great, yeah.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
moving, helping that.
Okay, town manager's report. Carrie?
Okay, thank you. We distributed earlier today the weekly operations report. I wanted to mention that last week we had a tabletop exercise that was run by MEMA involving all 4 communities who will be celebrating the 250th. MEMA ran the exercise out of the UCC, the Unified Command Center at Minuteman Vocational Technical High School. Our Concord team was in the Public Safety Center. It was really a great exercise. We simulated the events beginning at 6 a.m. on the 19th, and data was coming in to the different agencies, and they were responding, and we were testing all of our systems and protocols. We were on the 3rd floor of the Public Safety Building, which is our emergency operations center. It's been newly outfitted with some equipment. We're not completely finished, but it really was a great activity, and there's a picture that is in the report, so you can see that we probably had 40 or so staff available, and we were able to discover some things. They are workshopping it, which is not the term that they use, but identifying some of the hiccups and making sure that we have those worked through and addressed, so we're not dealing with those on April 19th. In the report, the town clerk has submitted some information about the annual town elections, a list of the candidates and for the different positions they're running for, or the different seats that people are running for. And I also wanted to pass along some information from Minuteman Media Network. And so I will just read what they wrote. It's election season in Concord. As our community TV station, Minuteman Media Network, wants to take the opportunity to inform candidates that they can film a video and or podcast for you, whether you are a candidate, if you're a voter education group, a town official, or a concerned resident. So they want to make sure that people are aware of their services and their willingness to help. And anybody who's interested in scheduling some time to shoot a video or record a podcast, our staff member, Tori Wisnowski, is our senior production and education coordinator, and she is the individual that will do that. And Tori's contact information is available on the website.
Great.
So also, let's see, also from the town clerk's office, a reminder that the 2025 dog licensing is underway. Dog owners are reminded that all dogs 6 months or older are required to be vaccinated against rabies and must be licensed where the dog resides. The deadline to license dogs without a late fee is March 31st, and from April 1st onward, there is a $25 late fee per household that will apply. There's some information in the report about where to go for additional information or questions. From Natural Resources, several updates, but I wanted to highlight Walden Pond Boathouse and Accessibility Improvements Project. The Natural Resources and Engineering staffs attended a pre-construction site visit with DCR representatives and their contractors in advance of the upcoming boathouse replacement and accessibility improvement project. Phase 1 of this project will begin this month, and it includes demolishing the 1946 bathhouse and replacing it with a new universally accessible bathhouse featuring individual and family restrooms, changing rooms, space for lifeguards, and a first aid room. The existing bathhouse foundation will become an outdoor classroom and overlook plaza. There is a second phase of this project, which is anticipated to begin next fall, and that will include a new universally accessible boardwalk and overlook. Another update from our Natural Resources Division regarding townwide trails map. Natural Resources and our GIS staff are collaborating to update the 2015 town-wide trails map. There are a number of conservation acquisitions, some signage and things since the 2015 map, and they are working to update that, and that will be available shortly. They mentioned that it will be available later this spring. It'll be 18 by 24 inches, and it will fold down into a 6 by 6 square.
That's great.
So I figured that was important to mention since they went to that detail. One final update from NRC is the town forest will see 2 infrastructure upgrades this spring. The first is a new wooden property sign that was routed by the conservation crew last summer and currently being painted and prepped for mounting at the town forest trail. The second is a new trailhead kiosk featuring a new timber framing design, which is being constructed by Trails Committee Chair Bob White. And both of those upgrades will be available at the main trailhead parking lot. I wanted to mention from Public Works that the 2024 water quality report is available, and there's a link in the report. It is available online. Make an announcement that Concord will be awarded a technical assistance grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources to develop a new municipal decarbonization roadmap for the town. Some more information included in the report. From the library, there were a number of highlights that were included in this report and a link to their report that has additional information, but I did want to mention the American Revolution film discussion. So documentarian Ken Burns, as many people will know, will be visiting Concord on April 17 to discuss his new film. He will be joined by others. This is an event, again, April 17, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the high school auditorium. The event will include 40 minutes of clips and then a discussion and conversation about the film and its meeting. And this is an event that is open by registration only. Registration will be open early next month, and it is available to residents of Arlington, Concord, Lexington, and Lincoln.
Okay.
And those were the items that I wanted to mention to you this evening.
Great. Any questions for Carrie?
I just wanted to note, because it appeared on the screen, about the Warner's Pond Task Force's public meeting, that has been postponed, so it will not take place on March 13th, is it? As indicated here. There was some additional work that needed to be done, and I believe we're attempting to reschedule that, possibly for April 3rd, but watch this. But just if you read this report and it says March 13th, do not expect it that day.
Okay, so
Okay,
tentatively
that's good.
April 3rd.
Tentatively April 3rd.
Okay, great, thank you, thank you.
So Carrie, just for clarity, like the Walden Pond thing,
Yeah.
that's not a town.
It's not a town
right? So just,
project.
for people watching and listening, it's not money the town is spending, right? I mean, it's.
That's
maybe you
correct.
guys-
It's part of the Great American Outdoors funding that the National Park Service has received a significant amount of funding. We are keeping track of it because it's within the community, and we definitely hear from people who have an interest in
But
following
we're
that
actually not
project.
constructing
It
it
is,
or.
yeah, it's not the town's project.
Thanks.
You all set?
I am, thank you.
Great, everybody all set? Okay, good. The next item is chair's comments. First, I want to just announce to the public that during our executive session, we were talking about the town manager's contract. We're making good progress towards that. We're still in negotiation, and when we have a finalized contract, we will make that public. For the select board, I'd like you to mark your calendars that I would like to have a meeting on March 24th and not March 31st. Right now, the calendar shows a meeting on the 31st. I'd like to move that to the 24th, and we will review and vote on the town manager's budget.
I will be out of town and missing that meeting.
Okay. You would miss the 31st as well, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter which
Okay,
one it is.
doesn't matter, great. Okay, thanks.
At least I'm not missing 2 meetings.
Okay, thanks for, is that okay with the other?
So
Yeah.
so sorry, we've got March 3rd, March 17th, and now March 24th.
Right, and the 31st is, we're not going to meet the 31st unless
Third,
something happens.
17,
I wanted to mention that Wendy and I toured the Ellen Garrison building at the new Concord Middle School what was that, Wednesday? Wendy?
yeah.
With
yeah,
a
it
few
was.
members from the
It's
Finance
beautiful,
Committee.
yeah.
It's beautiful. The light is wonderful. It's truly a wonderful building. There is a plan to open that up to the public sometime in May. There'll be a ribbon cutting and an open house, and also we're hoping some kind of recognition for all of the people that contributed to the building committee, which has just done an outstanding job. So I think that is something that the whole community should feel very good about. Finally, Carlin Reed mentioned at the end of our chair's breakfast last week about, is there anything in the works to extend the act that enabled Zoom meetings for public meetings, because that was supposed to expire. It is set to expire on March 31st. And there are 3 bills that are in play right now. One is part of the Governor's Municipal Empowerment Act. I will bring a letter to the Select Board at our next meeting for us to send in support of that. It extends that permanently. So it'll extend the ability to have open meetings through hybrid permanently, indefinitely. There are also 2 other bills, a House bill and a Senate bill that are sponsored by different legislators. That will pretty much similar to the governor's bill, only it addresses representative town meeting, which, as we know, we don't have. So if other people want to also let our legislators know that they support this bill, there's a link on the Mass Municipal Council, Mass Municipal Association website, MMA website, that you can let your support for that bill be known. But we will be sending a letter on behalf of the Select Board at our next meeting on March 3rd.
Thank you so much for remembering that. I had it in my to-do list to bring it up, and I forgot.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's all I have. Any questions for me about? We're good.
I have a question about this. There was some other material in the packet. It's supplemental material with
Oh,
the
yeah,
FTEs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, does this connect to the budget or the personnel board discussion?
No,
or
this connects to the letter right in front of it, I believe. Andrea,
Oh,
help
There
me out
wasn't a
here.
letter in front of
Is
it.
it the letter right in front of it? It's supplemental material to the letter in front of it.
I don't know that there was one.
Is
Is
that
there a letter in front of it? I don't remember that
So
there was.
the correspondence?
Yeah, it's a correspondence.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There's a correspondence,
Oh, now
and
there's
then these were
correspondence, right. All
supplemental
right.
or supporting schedules
Okay.
that were referenced in the correspondence.
So these are provided by the person who wrote the letter in the correspondence.
That's right.
They're not provided by the town staff.
Really? These?
No.
Ah,
Okay.
that
Really?
explains everything. Okay. I'm
That's
trying to figure
interesting.
out how this,
I guess I read it, okay.
yeah, I didn't know.
You did.
If I could just comment on this.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
I didn't go through this in great detail, but in the budget books historically, through fiscal '24, we include a chart like this, and I would assume these numbers tie. And as you know, we do not have a budget book for fiscal '25, so this data is not available in a budget book, but it was presented at the last, when we went through the budget the last time, we updated with FTEs. So I believe this is what is in the budget book with a column added using the information that we provided at your last meeting, just putting it in one document.
Okay.
So I do think this information is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
And the other set of things, starting on page 96, the regular status hires and terminations, that is an example of data which is regularly displayed at the personnel board meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And so it talks about regular full-time and regular part-time headcount hires and terminations based on people coming and going. And I know Jess is in the back, but it may or may not contain some overlap depending on the time period, I would say. So, I would be careful about, sort of adding that up. And obviously, we're not repeatedly hiring two people into the town manager's office over and over again over a period of months. So I believe it covers the year to date.
And if I could, just one other comment, because, we hear over and over there are 10 FTEs in the town manager's office. This data is truncated, so the town manager's office in this presentation includes economic vitality, it includes the sustainability. So it's, this breakdown is not all of our divisions. It's some of them are aggregated, I guess.
But it's an example of some of the data that the personnel board is looking at regularly now as part of their dashboard.
Good to know. Okay. Liaison reports. Does anybody have anything they want to add to their liaison
Well,
report?
since I didn't write it up,
Go ahead.
we already talked about the Warner's Pond Task Force. March 13 meeting is postponed. And I saw just on my way in that it may be being rescheduled for April 3rd, but watch that space. MCI Legal and Government Subgroup did meet last week. We are arranging site access for the contractor that's been hired. The kickoff meeting for the MCI planning process is tomorrow morning, with some access for that contractor being done. We're also following up on the MassDOT meeting to get some further work done with that. That came up at our DCAM coordination meeting. Apparently, MassDOT has actually assigned a project manager to the rotary redesign. So we're looking to keep that conversation going. Like many of you, I did attend the Public Works Commission Transportation Advisory Committee joint meeting, and that's an important discussion about our roads program and the critical needs there. We heard from the Personnel Board today. The Building Committee also met on the 13th. Looking forward to the opening of the school, which was today.
Yes.
Hooray. The Ellen Garrison
Right.
Building is officially open. We're really celebrating that. It is a beautiful building, and we look forward to getting the community in there for that. That project is not missing a beat, though. That the preparation for abatement and demolition of Sanborn is underway. Another really exciting day was Saturday the 15th, when they had the community recycling day. It was an opportunity to go run around Peabody and Sanborn and find some treasures, and it was really pretty exciting and fun to be there. And that was I think a good community event, and it certainly reminded me of why it was high time to do something about the middle school. And probably the last thing is DCAM has acknowledged the receipt of our letter expressing an interest in continuing to negotiate over the wastewater treatment facility.
Great.
Okay, that's it.
Cameron, do you have anything?
No, Mary, I just had one quick question on your report, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's, and I don't, if you know it. So it says CPC article 740,000 for affordable housing.
Yep.
And then it says upcoming projects include Aspet Bluff. So is the 740 for those upcoming projects, or is the 740?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if it was, okay, I just wasn't sure.
I don't.
All right.
I'm going to be careful. I don't know.
No, that's fine.
I don't know.
That's fine. I was just curious.
I thought Elizabeth Bluff was already funded.
It is.
I think it
I didn't
is,
want to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we think.
I think that.
It's the next
740
round.
is for
Well, 500 of that is for future projects, and 240 is a give back because they came under budget for the, for the Habitat for Humanity house at the Giroux. But I think Mark is right,
Okay.
but I just want to, I want to be,
So the 740, it sounds like, is not, it's appropriating it for future projects.
it is.
Okay.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Well, the only update I have is that the Tax Relief Evaluation Task Force is going to have their first meeting on March
Excellent.
6th, so that moves
Excellent.
along.
Good,
Oh,
good,
nice.
Yep.
very good.
And then I just had one comment, Terry, you talked about we had the DPW meeting and the wastewater, the water, the new utility. There's a stormwater. I know, I said the wrong thing. This is getting late. There is a great report on the website. They have a draft report, and there's preliminary rates that are there and credits. So if anyone's interested in learning more, it's on the website. It's under the engineering folder. If you keep drill through to the to the stormwater, you'll see it.
Thank
but
you,
it's a
Wendy.
great report. So.
That's a really
That's right.
good point.
Very
I
good.
know they
Very good.
came in and talked to the select board that they were going to be doing this. Do we plan to have them come back? Or is it just we'll be hearing the detail at the public hearing?
I'm expecting it at the public hearing.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So, yes, sorry, Wendy, can I ask you one question on the,
Yeah.
yours, on the amenities building?
Yeah.
You mentioned, you said there continues to be some open questions about this funding. The previously approved regional article will be submitted, but will likely be withdrawn.
So they're going to submit 2 articles, and maybe we know by now because they were supposed to be submitted. So originally they voted for the regional article, and when I say the regional article, it was for the full $1.85 million for the amenities building. And typically with those projects, they quote the full dollar amount, but the funding would be decided based on the proportional share. So what we actually issue as sort of a debt would be our side of that amount, which was the 1.4 million, or roughly thereabout. But because of some open questions on the use of CPC funding, particularly if Carlisle's funds through CPC, there's some open questions around how CPC funds are applied to a project, and if they're applied at the top of the project, if you will, then that might contribute to Concord share. So in the absence of, in addition to that regional article, for safety purposes, they're going to have 2 separate articles. There'll be a separate Concord share article for the amenities building, which would be the actual 76% of the 1.45. I don't have the numbers in my head. And then they would have a comparable article on the Carlisle side. I think Carlisle is going to try to fund it all with CPC, but there's just some contingency planning here because there's some open legal questions around CPC. So when we see the warrant article list, I think we'll see there could be multiple articles there.
I can confirm, there are 2 articles, and we're awaiting a determination from bond counsel
Great.
on
And
which
this
one
would
will go
be
forward.
a debt exclusion, a proposed debt
Yes.
exclusion?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And is there, I'm going to ask a question, we may not know the answer, but if there's a way that it's like, you can approve it, but then if we get CPC funding,
Well, on the Concord side, there will not be a proposal for CPC funding unless something happens on the town floor.
Cameron, do you mean in the future? If maybe next year?
yeah.
What are you?
Well, I mean, if, is there a way that you can say, well, we're going to approve the funding if we need it, but if we start construction and we can get CPC funds, trying to avoid having the taxpayers pay for something that money sits, they've already paid
Yeah.
taxes into the CPC. We said you can't have your own money, trying to find a way where they could actually be able to spend our own money rather than have to ask for more money.
If the project is approved at town meeting and at the ballot as a debt exclusion, we have the authorization to move forward with the borrowing, but we don't have to move forward with the borrowing. So if in the next CPC round the project is approved, at most, we may have some expense related to temporary financing, but if it all happened inside of one fiscal year, the likelihood of that would be slim to none. So there is a way.
There might be, I mean, about having options.
Yeah.
Is what
Yes.
I'm exploring or asking.
We don't typically permanently finance a project until really at least a year after it's been complete, just our bonding cycle.
Right, and if we got that funding in a subsequent town meeting, we could rescind the
You could
debt
rescind the debt
authorization. Yeah.
authorization.
Yeah.
An example of when there was a significant delay between town meeting authorization of borrowing and actual expenditures is the advanced metering infrastructure project that the town meeting appropriated
Oh, yeah.
or authorized borrowing of like $3.5 million, like 5 years ahead of when we actually started doing it. The only reason that that's not a particularly good idea is that borrowing authorization counts against our borrowing capacity from a
Yeah, if it's
bond.
booked, if it's sort of being
Yeah,
held.
yeah.
Got it, got it. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
So does the select board have a number of warrant articles?
We
Well,
do.
How many do we have? Are we going to have them next week at our?
We are, March 3rd.
Yeah,
March 3rd is our town meeting.
I see.
Meeting.
Yep.
What do we have, like 5 or 6 select board articles, something like that?
Yeah.
Well, when you say, you mean that we'll have
Sponsored
at
by
our, well,
town
sponsored,
related.
that we'll have at our public hearing?
No, that are specific select board articles.
It's not, I haven't seen it sorted that way. We have 60 articles on town meeting warrant.
60, huh?
Okay.
How many citizen petitions?
Really, really. This is a 3-night meeting, looks like, but we'll see. We'll decide on March 3rd, questions about that.
Rooting for
Okay.
the consent calendar.
And the consent calendar. We're not having a consent calendar. Just joking.
Got him there. Got him for a minute.
Just joking. Well, you know, it's a way to sneak things by.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Great.
Good work tonight, thank you.
Good thing we're not